So without further ado, Gaurav and Manjot,
Thank you,
take it
Bob.
away, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon to all. I'm Gaurav Mathur, and I'm one of the business practice leaders for BPM in Capgemini. I'll hand it over to my colleague, Manjot.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Manjot Sohi. I lead our cards practice in North America. I've been working with all our major issuers and acquirers with Capgemini for about 10 years, and then prior to that, another 10 years for various employers. We have an introduction slide, what is acquiring, but Bob's here. I see a couple of folks from Amex. I guess we can skip this. If somebody wants to go through it, we'll give a very high-level overview of what is acquiring. Otherwise, we'll get on right to the subject. Is anybody interested in, I'm assuming most of the folks have an acquiring background, or? Okay, sure, we'll spend a minute on it, no problem. That was the reason we had it here. So typically, when we look at a transaction trail, from the minute a buyer steps into a store, what happens to it? So there are two, four essential components. One is the buyer, second is the merchant, third is the association or the card schemes, and the fourth is the issuing bank. So typically, a buyer walks into a store, the merchant presents its card, the transaction goes to either a processor or an acquirer like a First Data or Vantiv or so and forth, and then it's routed through a card association to an issuer, and then a round robin back again. Our focus is basically on the merchants, between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. That is the process, that transaction flow that we're going to kind of walk through here, and what are we bringing to the table for that. Having worked with our clients and done research on our own, there is tremendous pressure on acquirers. The competition is on. There's always, typically, everybody makes money off the fees. In acquirer's case, the fees are split into 3 components. One is your interchange fee, which typically is fixed and gets passed to the issuer. So the acquirer doesn't get anything out of it. Second is the assessment fee, which the card association folks charge. And the third is the markup. The markup is the place where the acquirers make money. And typically, out of 100, and we'll show the figures later, out of a $100 transaction, a markup for acquirer brings about 25 cents of revenue. So having said that, you can realize how much pressure there is to increase margins, decrease the expenses with all the new regulations coming in, the Durbin, all the options you have to give as a network. And in addition, now you have the new players, traditional acquirers, Vantiv, First Data, Chase Payment Systems, Bank of America. They are getting also, squeezed in by Square, which offers like a pretty flat fee structure. Then there's Google Wallet, there is ISIS, PayPal, a different kind of fee structure comes into play. So what we're seeing is that there's always somebody offering a better product that leads to about, merchant attrition. Stores jump over to a new acquirer because I'm getting a better pricing. Typically, what we see is about a 20% attrition, and some of the stores stop doing business because they don't want to use a card, or they go out of business. So that's why there's a different number, 20%, out of which 16% switch acquirers. So I'll a little bit digress from the subject on the slide here. So as Capgemini, what we've come is with a merchant value chain and frameworks. So what we have focused on is there is onboarding of merchants, there is dispute management, there is billing part of it, there's servicing part of it, and obviously the mobile component. So as a practice and working closely with Pega and our internal practices, we have come with a set of frameworks that we believe that will bring more efficiency, more reduced time to market for our clients. And one of the first things that we selected was, we had all these 3 things, what do we do first? Obviously the first thing in a line of chain is merchant onboarding. There was also demand from a couple of our clients, we work with two of the top 5 clients in the US, acquired clients. and there was interest from them that, hey, we would really want to see what can you do on a merchant onboarding framework. Typical scenarios, right, challenges, too manual, too error prone, have to, have somebody key it in, too time consuming, what efficiency can we bring in, increase the productivity. And so we said, okay, let's look at a merchant onboarding framework that we can pilot and bring to the market. So this is again an analysis of why did we select merchant onboarding. I talked about our 25 cents net revenue that a merchant makes, and typically this is the split up. As you can see, we could have picked one of any of these, for the bang of buck. Out of the 25 cents, about 5% is profit. The other 20% goes into evenly split between sales, marketing, risk management, servicing, and other components. So we just decided, hey, merchant onboarding makes sense. Let's see what framework can we come up with that. Another thing that I'm sure folks, especially from Amex and other acquirers, have realized that there isn't an industry solution for acquiring products. If you go switch over to the issuing part of the industry, there are a number of vendors that give you, right off the shelf, there's a product that can be installed. Most of the systems in acquiring space have been built ground up, which means, legacy, changing them is kind of hard. The other trend is there's a lot of consolidation in the market. Like recently, Vantab acquired Mercury Systems. So what happens is you buy another acquirer. As you can see, the margins are low. If the things are working well, they don't touch it. Let's let it work in silos. As long as you're making profit, there's no customer attrition, I'm going to stick to it. And then obviously, introducing new channels is an issue. How do I get, here's a legacy system, how do I get it onto a mobile platform, or iPad, and so forth. So we believe that solution that we have come up with addresses all these areas. And as I walk into the next slides, I'm going to turn it over to Gaurav, who introduced himself. And Gaurav has been instrumental in building this solution over the last year or so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm Gaurav, and I'm a BPM evangelist. I've spent close to 10 plus years working closely with Pega. And this is a solution that is related to the onboarding process. So it's basically a framework for acquirers who are interested in onboarding merchants for payment processing. The engine, and obviously this is a picture that we took yesterday from the Space Museum yesterday. So the engine for this entire powerful, beautiful framework is Pega 7. We've used nearly all the features available in Pega 7, from the frameworks to federated case management. Now, if you look at the onboarding side, there are typically these 7 steps which are mentioned here. But at a high level, you have data collection. Once the data is collected and verified and on all that, then there is some level of risk analysis, be it in terms of analysis purely or in terms of underwriting. Once that's been done, then the onboarding process takes place. In merchant onboarding, specifically after a merchant is onboarded, typically there are stores, there are terminals. So as a part of this framework, we cover the end-to-end scenario. So all these 7 points are covered. And the last and very important thing is the merchant extract to your backend systems are also covered as a part of this framework. Now, for this session, I will typically be focusing on origination and touching upon on the help desk that we've created. So when we talk about a framework, now this is a really ambiguous area for a lot of people. For some people, a framework could be some few designs on paper. For others, it could be business models. And on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen a lot of frameworks which are near application. So it's nearly close to a commercial off-the-shelf product. What do we mean by a framework when we talk in terms of merchant onboarding? So for this, typically there are 5 large assets that we have. The first one is a huge repository of business models. So we have end-to-end business models compliant to BPMN 2.0 standards. Second asset for this framework is a repository of close to 65 different use cases. In addition, we have data models. We have a lot of inbuilt integrators. So be it integrators with content management system through CMIS or through messaging systems and emails. In addition, the last and the most important thing is it's working software. So it's configurable, but you have an end-to-end capability that you could actually take it with very little customization, put it into deployment. Oh, so this is a slide which I would call it as a pre-Pega 7. So I would not look at this for the flow of merchant onboarding. We'll go with this one. For the purpose of this presentation, there are a few actors. And I'll show you the unique features that we've done for those actors. So typically, there is somebody called as an independent sales agent. So these are people who would go to the market, collect information over paper forms, come back, give it to a sales representative, and the process goes on. For this particular independent sales agent, we have tried to put in as many options as possible. So yes, while there is an option of taking a paper, filling the information, going from one merchant to the other, spending maybe 3 to 4 days, collecting all that paperwork, submitting it to an acquirer, a little time consuming. So some process efficiencies that we've done is the minute you collect the information of a merchant, take a snapshot, send an email, and within Pega, a case is created. So it takes the ISO's name, puts it all there, takes the document that is attached, and a case is created. So you're not waiting for that all process to come and get initiated in the data entry screens. Quick other thing is that apart from this, we also have fax and bulk upload. So all the documents in one shot can be uploaded directly. After this is the data entry operator. So a few years ago, not very long ago, even if you were working with Pega and you had to do data entry, you would pick up the document, type something, refer it, and do it. Not a very efficient process. Later on, with the scanned images, it was a little easier, but you still had to toggle between two screens. So one of the innovations that we have done is we've added a viewer within the Pega screen itself. So now you have the screen on one side and the form that needs to be entered on this. In the next version of this application, what we're also doing is you have the highlighted section. So if you're typing on the name, you would see that section highlighted to reduce errors. The other thing is that we've integrated this particular form with address verification, with Google, and I'll talk about a little more of why we are using all these integrations a little further when we talk about analysis. After the data entry operator has done the data entry, the case is sent to underwriter. So in the underwriter screen, and I've skipped a lot of steps in the middle, one of the steps is that it goes to a credit check. So when the report or the case reaches the underwriter, it's a comprehensive view. The credit bureau, be it from Dun & Bradstreet or some of the other credit bureaus, there's a report attached. It has fairly easy to use screen, and you do your decisioning here. After the decisioning is done, again, glossing over some of the steps, the merchant is onboarded, you add a terminal, you add a store, you add a terminal. Now, for a simple process where there is one merchant, one store, one terminal, easy. But when we're talking about a large chain, and let's take the example of Marriott, lots of different properties, lots of different point of sale machines becomes complicated. And to do all that, manage that is a challenge. So what we have added, some of the key features that we've added, at least on the terminal deployment, is very well integrated with any of your logistics systems, be it FedEx or USPS. You can track where the equipment is. Once the equipment reaches your merchant, you need to dispatch your engineers to basically do a configuration, installation. This particular framework gives you a complete customer communication management feature also. So if you have tier sheets with barcodes, everything, either it can be done through the system, or it's very configurable to be expanded, and you could attach it with any of your CCM systems like Thunderhead, DocuMaker, and so on and so forth. Taking a quick look at some of the features. Now for some of the acquirers, some of them who are in the room, acquiring business has become global. So it makes sense for the same solution to be scalable, to be flexible for multilingual, multi-currency, and other multi-country rollout mandates. For this one, what we've done is we've kept it open to be multi-scalable. The second thing that we've done is all the different actors that are there, and we came up with a list of around 15 different roles, maker, checker, and so on and so forth. We've added them there, but this is configurable. So if you want a particular role, you can add it. If you don't, it's very easily removed and very easily configured. When we were talking about the Marriott example, so we're talking about, let's say, one merchant, 422, or some number that I read on the internet about the different properties that they have, and each of them have at least 4 terminals on an average. So we're talking big numbers. Tracking this is a challenge, whether all the terminals have been correctly dispatched or not, changes. For that, we are using Pega 7's case management feature, and I think it's a brilliant, brilliant feature. You could have all these little subcases spawned, and based on their status, the case gets resolved. So tracking of a particular case to closure is something that we have seen to be working very efficiently. In fact, we ran a few pilots, as Manjot mentioned, with a few acquirers. And one of the key elements was that they were missing some of the merchants. So the paperwork would get lost or it would slip through the cracks. With this, you could actually track where it was stuck, pinpoint the areas, and kind of quickly take an action to it. This is another very interesting area, very ubiquitous in Pega, but not very effectively used in this industry. So step one that we did was we got a lot of reports embedded to it. So as out of the box, there are close to 25 reports. Some of them are simple reports about warning you about approaching deadlines and goals. Some of them are about a throughput of the operator. But we've gone a step further, and in the next version, this is what we are working on, is analytics. So if you see a particular area where merchants seem to be moving out of the acquirer network, or if you see a particular segment where you see attrition in the merchant, these are some of the features of decision management features of NBAA that we have added to pinpoint trends and take proactive actions to see whether you need to revise the fee structure, are there any incentives that need to be provided, and so on. On the last few things, build for change truly is. So extremely configurable. You could add flows on the fly, completely case management related. Second is a lot of parameters, be it the parameters for risk analysis or fee-related parameters, are very tightly coupled with the business users. So having a dependency on the IT to make changes on these frequently changing parameters did not make too much sense. So we've delegated it completely to the business users, and they could make these changes, well, I wouldn't say on the fly, but in a controlled environment, in a regulated workflow, but out of scope of IT. So they don't have to bother IT too much. It's more of an independent function. Well, not the best screenshot that I have taken, but yes, customer engagement is something, again, that is very integral to this solution. So whether it's sending constant messages or it's sending regular emails, basically updating the features and so on, is something in this product. Now, we've seen efficiency improvements through this, whether it's better customer experience, integrated life cycle, but still, one of the areas that we saw where process was still, for us, a little broken was the fact that it was still a very manual process in the initiation step, when you collected the information on paper, waited, and then sent it out. So what we've done is we've extended this solution on a mobile platform. So our idea is that the ISO would go, collect all the information, do verification, whether it's by taking pictures or by using address verification services, take a customer's signature, and ship the case out. If this particular merchant is within the acceptable risk parameters, the case goes through a straight-through processing framework, automated rules apply, and you could actually onboard a merchant in real time, very similar to the credit cards that you get at some of these stores. So all this time period, which could be from 3 days to a few weeks, could at least be compressed to a very, very short time. So this was something that we were particularly proud of, and again, has been made possible by the enhancement in the mobile framework of Pega 7. Okay, we're a little too soon for this, but that's the way of things to come. So what we've also added is a CPM-based help desk. So in case your terminal is not working, or you need an address change, and so on and so forth, all those things are now added. This particular framework is still built on Pega 6, but we're upgrading it to Pega 7 to make it more interesting and so on. Just an example of the case management. With that, Manjot, I hand it over to you.
I guess, our goals were, what are the benefits? Typical reduced time to market, multi-channel, reduce the onboarding time. So one thing I'd like to point out is we run some pilots like Gaurav has indicated. And we believe that, combination of, effort, time to market, that we can bring up to 30% efficiency gain. We've run, I think we did a pilot last year, and there's another one that Gaurav's spearheading in a month's time, which will be a full-blown solution for the onboarding. So hopefully we'll have better results. Right now, just based on our pilots, this is what our benchmarks are telling us. But hopefully in about 3 months or so, we'll be able to come back and give a better projections on the metrics that, hey, this has gone live. Here are the real numbers that we've been able to bring to our clients.
Very well. We're open for questions.
So if you have, am I on? Yeah, there we go. So you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone, and we can catch it on tape. Thank you.
Hey, this is Krishna from EY. My question is, are you planning to make it as a framework, or you're building for some client?
Well, this is a framework. So we've taken input from the client, but it's configurable and not very, very specific to any one particular client. Still a little oriented toward North America than others, but yes, very configurable.
I noticed your business processes look similar to card onboarding processes, and I'm curious to know if that you've thought if that could be extended out. And first, and second of all, how well is it performing through? Is it automation primarily, or is it manual workflow based primarily?
Okay, I'll answer the first one. It's a good question, Jim. In parallel, we've also developed what we call as enterprise origination framework. On the card side, the intent is to have a single originations for loans, cards, mortgages, and all that. We've taken the first step where we've come up with the cards part of it. Now we're enhancing it to include loans in it. So yes, it's just priorities, right? So we thought since there was a demand from a merchant onboarding from our clients, Gaurav has taken the initiative, and it's production ready, so-called. But we're also ready to go with the enterprise origination solution we built.
So just to add on top of that, Pega's situational layer cake is what we are using. So first origination, and then there are the silos for the others let's say loans, cards, and so on. And then each of them within cards, whether it's merchants or its clients and so on, those are the various stars that we are building in there. To answer your question about how automated versus manual, well, the roles are still there. So there is handoff between the various roles, but it's more streamlined, and there is a larger visibility. So if somebody is not performing, it suddenly, it flags up where the deadlocks and redundancies are. Does that answer your question? Yes. Thank you.
Hi, this is Gopi. Acquirers, you're having bulk scanning, faxing, that's a good feature. There are some situation for the customers also where the bulk scannings, once it is done, they might be splitting the images and attaching to the respective case. Sometimes they are missed up the location, so they need to rotate it and everything. So is that features included as part of your Weaver?
Not yet. So currently it's more of bulk scanning, and then each of those scans get routed. But the internal splitting of each of those forms for various different subcases is not yet available in this.
Other questions? Oh.
So I don't want to go into too much detail in this short time, but you did mention in the flow that there were some integrations that take place depending on what the client needs are. Can you speak a little bit more about integrations with a system like we're from Amex, right? We have lots of legacy systems, and we'd be interested in an end-to-end framework like this for our process, but not yet willing to migrate everything in the short term. So how would we go about cobbling together our existing capabilities with this end-to-end framework?
So, and I'll again split it into two. I'll let him speak for the various cards-related systems that are there and that this system integrates to. But at a high level, what we've done is we've tried to keep most of the workflow capabilities in this. But if there is, let's say, you integrate with Moody's for your risk analysis and so on. So it has an open integration. So we've built the integrator which can be configured based on your interfaces if they already exist, and that information can then be plugged in. But some of the standard ones, be it web service based integrations or MQ, are all at least available there for you to.
So for instance, like credit check, right? I mean, I'm sure there are softwares that you build, so it can do a call out and using whatever APIs and get that thing back. So you don't have to build it, it's just a call and the results comes back. Same thing for risk management. If you have any of these risk systems, it'll integrate with that risk system. So basically, the way we look at it is it's a framework sitting on top. Either, you can build the systems, or it's like I hate to use the word bus, but something like an integrator, right? That it's doing calls and presenting a unified view.
Oh.
I'm a communications person, so excuse me if this doesn't sound too brilliant, but how are you taking this to market? Is this a technical solution that you're offering up, or is it more of a managed service play? I noticed you had a customer service component in there. What's the view from Cap on how you're rolling this out to the marketplace?
So our primary way is that we don't do it managed yet. In the second phase, it could be as a service-based solution. But our first intention is to, once the couple of pilots are completed, then to have some implementations, come out with another version, and then make that version more as a service-based cloud implementation.
Other questions?
Bob, questions? You're an acquiring expert.
I was tempted to make comments on the past two questions, but I think I'll hold off. And
Bob, there's a question.
Another question.
How are you managing, enhancements to these frameworks? How are you releasing that?
So we have a controlled release program, very similar to like any other products. We try and space out some of these things, but it's a constant process. As technology is evolving, we're coming up with its different versions. As of now, the next version we don't anticipate at least in the next 6 to 8 months. So.
Because that'll also give us time to kind of refresh, and depending on our implementation that I just discussed, and also see if there's something missing. You know, obviously when it goes live, there's a lot more things that will come into play than what we anticipate right now.
And what about the implementation layer that is already, you know, built on your framework, on the existing framework? So when do they get these changes? How do you manage that? Version control.
So for existing things, we have very similar to Pega's release strategy that we have these service packs. And if there is something that is coming up. So the version that you just saw is a completely new version 7 integrated case management solution. So, but going forward for any of those critical enhancements that cannot wait till a proper release cycle, we would come up with a release service pack and bridge that gap.
And do you work with the business, or I mean, who do you work with, you know, to identify the requirements, and how do you prioritize them? I mean, who do you work with?
Oh yes, primarily it's all business driven, and people like Manjot who've been in the industry for 20+ years in the cards and acquiring space. So we get requests, we analyze the request. Sometimes it's available but not in the form that they're asking for. So we try and keep it as much pure out of the box for Pega at least, and not make customizations. It may sometimes meet changing the process for a particular business user, but that is what our recommendation is, primarily so that any new product releases are embedded without doing any effort. So we keep it very, very true to the out-of-the-box mandate.
Thank you.
Oh. You guys are giving me my exercise today. This is good.
Yeah, as far as your data storage goes, do you strictly use the Pega data structures, or do you work with existing custom tables or existing databases that may already be
Well, no. So system of records, we typically leave it to the customer, because their system of records would be definitely not Pega. So yes, that's definitely there.
Others? I think to address some of the points that were raised, what I would encourage you to do, having been in situations where we've taken people through a full demo of the solution. Today you saw some screenshots. You saw an overview encapsulating where it sits in the industry context and what the drivers are. I would ask you to consider seeing the solution up front. Then you would be able to see where we've stubbed out some of the integrations and calls to some of the enterprise systems for credit scoring, or where there's the the upload at the end of the process to the switch, to the merchant accounting system, to all the different enterprise systems of record to address the question we just heard. So I would encourage you to talk to either your Pega representative or your Capgemini representative to actually see the solution, spend some time and do that exercise. I'd like to thank Manraj and Gaurav for their time today. Can we show a little appreciation to them, please?
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure.